Hello, everybody. I'm actually on Disneyland property right now. I'm in Disney Springs, a Holiday Inn at Disney Springs. So I made it to Disney World. I'll be here one night, and then I'm gonna go somewhere else in Disney World. But some breaking Spork family news that I just discovered. It's still kind of unclear as to what I've discovered, but it seems like I've discovered something. Um, so so my so I at a certain age I learned that my grandpa made I always knew my grandpa was an engineer, but at a certain age I discovered I learned that he had engineered some very important pieces of history. um and and then I had this nose cone to look at my whole life. So I was told at a young age that my grandpa discovered or made the nose cone for something for NASA, kind of a thing. That's what I always was told. Um, so there were bits and pieces of the story told about it was a rocket for the satellite, but it was never. It was never clear to me what it was exactly. There's all these different the NASA and the space race was always broken up down into all these different stages through the years. It's kind of unless you really are a student of space history and space exploration, you really can kind of get confused by it all the different attempts and the different trials in space. So I was always kind of lost in that whole confusion of all growing up, and my grandpa never told me about it. It's kind of like me. It's kind of like me when I do something, when I have like a big sculpture I make or something. I just do it and it's done, and then I go on to the next thing. So I don't like. Now we have Facebook. I talk about it on Facebook, but when I'm hanging around my friends and my family and stuff, I don't talk about the sculpture I did at the Conservancy Park very much at all. So you got to understand that, in my family, when we do something, it's like we just go on to the next thing, and I don't know. That's just how it's been. We remember it and we kind of keep logs of what we did, but what I'm saying is that. Uh, I always knew it. We had my grandpa made this nose cone, but I never knew exactly what it was. Um, as I got older, we went to the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. and my dad pointed up at the rocket, one of the rockets in the Smithsonian, and he's like, oh, and he told us that's the rocket that your grandfather was a part of or something. I don't remember exactly what he said. I was probably 12 years old. Um, and then I saw this nose cone sitting in my house my whole life. So and then I remember I got a little bit older, and my first cousin, um, from Cincinnati, he went to the Smithsonian and he posted a picture on Facebook, and he's like, oh, my grandpa had something to do with that nose cone on that rocket or something. So I had different family members throughout the years, kind of identifying what my grandpa did with this nose cone. So I never had a clear understanding of what it went to exactly. I knew it was part of the space program. So I think it was when my grandpa died, we got a lot of his paperwork and stuff, and photographs, and things that he had kept in his office. So we have newspaper clippings, and I have army photographs that I haven't shown you. I have invitations to Washington D.C. for special dinners for NASA and the space program. Congressional dinner um, invitations that say what they're for. So as these bits of pieces of information came forward to me, I started to for some reason I always was told that it was the rocket that my grandpa's nose cone went to. So I always thought it was the rocket. So so why so then I just discovered after watching YouTube videos tonight and looking at them carefully, something wasn't making sense. Something never quite made sense. Even when I was at the Kennedy Space Center today, it just didn't quite look like that was the nose cone in the rocket. But it was a long ways away, and it's really small, and it's up high, and the nose cone on the rocket that I saw at the Smithsonian, which was the same rocket, that one looked like my grandpa's. So it was I wasn't, it doesn't make much sense. But then I was watching this YouTube video, and very clearly you can see the nose cone is being put on the actual Explorer 1 satellite. Not the rocket, but the actual satellite. Maybe they used it on both. I don't know. It's possible. Because if you read the newspaper clipping that I attached, it doesn't say anything about the nose cone being on the satellite. It says the nose cone went on the Explorer 1 missile. But there was never an Explorer 1 missile. The Explorer 1 satellite was propelled by the Jupiter C missile. So I think the newspaper clipping, I think the people that wrote the newspaper article, the Cincinnati Enquirer, I think they got it wrong. I think they should have put the Explorer 1 satellite. Instead, they put the missile, because it does talk about how the process to produce these nose cones that my grandfather engineered as vice president of the company he was working for with the president. It mentions in this newspaper article that that process was used on many missiles and army projects. So what that tells me is that either one, they intentionally kind of misread the readers, by writing an article excluding the fact that the Explorer 1 missile was actually a satellite, or at the time, maybe they just called the Explorer 1 a missile. It's a little bit of a mystery, but quite clearly, if you watch the YouTube video, you can see it. The nose cone is going on the satellite, and not the missile. But it does look like it could possibly be on the missile too. So, why doesn't my dad know this? Why doesn't my sisters know this? Well, first of all, my dad. See, something interesting. A lot of people always ask, does your dad know Norwegian? And they think it's kind of unusual, maybe that he's the first generation, but he doesn't know any Norwegian. Well, what's interesting about all that is that my dad. I always say that my grandpa wasn't a traditional kind of immigrant, because he wasn't, and I think yes, I think a lot of immigrants that are a husband and wife team that come over as immigrants, they're both speaking Norwegian or whatever, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, French. They're speaking that together all the time, and their children hear that all the time, and the children learn quite a bit of it. So, I didn't think about this until now, but since my grandpa married an American, because he was over in the United States doing business, he never spoke Norwegian with my grandma. So my dad never heard two people speaking Norwegian together, which is another reason why I don't think my dad understood everything that was going on with the whole invention that my grandpa made, because for other multiple reasons. He was the middle child, so I think a lot of the important information went to my dad's older sister first, who maybe filtered a little of it as it went down through my dad and my dad's younger sister. I also know that my dad was 9 years old when the nose cone was put on the rocket, so he probably would have very little understanding of what exactly was going on then. Um, and who knows, maybe it was even top secret at the time. Maybe my grandpa couldn't even talk about it. Number three, my dad went away to boarding school, and my dad's parents divorced twice when he was young. So, there was a lot of stuff going on. So, and my dad wasn't with his father all the time to talk about these things. So, I just, I think, I think, I think there were like that newspaper article that I have where my grandpa was in the newspaper. I don't think my grandpa talked about things very much. Um, like his inventions. I don't think he like bragged about how he had the first nose cone on the satellite. I think my dad probably read that newspaper article and he kind of went by that, the newspaper article that I have. I think all my grandpa's important paperwork and pictures and everything are what I ended up with after he died. And by that time, my dad didn't even really think much about. My dad's already 45 years old, and he didn't think much of it by then. So that's why I don't think there's been a clear understanding of what my grandpa's nose cone went on. And again, it's another example of how unusual my family is. And I mean, all families are unusual, but um, I'm pinpointing a very unusual feature of my family. So so again, um, uh, it's really fascinating. Again, if you think about the whole nature of my grandpa being Norwegian, and my grandma being American, and when you think about it that way, um, it kind of opens up the whole picture a little more clearer as to it's a multifaceted. I have to talk about this because I kind of look a little bit. It makes my credibility kind of like, well, this guy's a history. This guy's has a history degree. Um, you know, uh, I have a history degree, and but I also grew up with a story that I've heard when I was a kid, and there are no, I haven't done any primary source research. We have the nose cone, we have the newspaper articles, we have army photographs, we have um, dinner invitations to congressional dinner invitations for the space program. Um, we have. I mean, it's obvious. My grandpa made this machine and this nose cone. Um, so why it wasn't apparent that it went on the why it wasn't apparent that the nose cone went on the satellite? I don't know exactly why that wasn't like something that was just obviously we all knew about, because that's like a huge deal. That's like amazing. And like I said, the best way to explain that is because it's like me. I made the big conservancy project installation. I don't go around and tell everybody at every dinner party I go to how I did that. I don't tell all my friends that I meet for the first time that I did that. So if you imagine that, on top of the fact that my dad was the middle child, the only son, and between two a husband and wife that kept marrying and divorcing, where they probably weren't necessarily thinking about elevating one another. I don't know. I'm just guessing because I have to feel like I have to justify why we don't have some kind of like presidential signature next to the first nose cone. But that's the best way of describing it. So, it's I'm like 95% certain that the nose cone went on the satellite, the Explorer 1 satellite, the first satellite the U.S. launched into space. After watching that video on YouTube just now, after reading the article in the newspaper that was from the Cincinnati Enquirer about my grandpa's machine, and after reading that, watching the YouTube video, and just knowing and just seeing a little bit more of this history, it's very clear to me that the nose cone went on the satellite. Now, I think it's very possible the nose cone may also have been used for the satellite or for the missile as well, because a lot of times they would make parts that would fit on the same, serve the same purpose, but on different pieces of equipment, so they wouldn't have to engineer more than one. So it's very possible that the nose cone was on multiple pieces of equipment. So that's possible, which is even more amazing. So I just thought I would do a little video clearing that up. So welcome to Disney World.